Welcome to UNCG. I'm Aaron Terranova. This is the Master of Science in Athletic Training Education program, and you're about to be a preceptor. So sit back, relax, enjoy the video you're about to watch. Make sure you watch all the modules in our series, and I'll see you at the end of them for your final examination. Good luck.
Welcome to the UNCG Entry-Level Masters in Athletic Training Education program, Preceptor Initial Training. You have gone through the first 4 modules, so that means we are up to Module 5, and this is the nuts and bolts and how we actually do things here at UNCG in terms of our clinical plan. So hopefully everything leading up to this has been more conceptual in nature, how to be a preceptor, what we look for in being a preceptor, etc. And this is actually how we run our program. So if there's any module you're probably going to want to review a couple times, it's this module. Please understand, in the comment section in the YouTube, there is a link to a quiz. You must complete that quiz in order to be an official preceptor. So please, when you're done with this module, click on that link in the comment section and take the quiz. So first thing about our philosophy is that we base our philosophy on what's called the SCORES principles. And that means stakeholders, KD, opportunistic, real-world, enjoyable, and setting-specific. The stakeholders, that's you. Everyone involved in our program, from the students to faculty to staff to preceptors, everybody has a stake in it. We bring everybody in to comment, feedback, and discuss our program. So you, as a new preceptor, you're a stakeholder now, so your feedback, your input, and your comments on our program are going to be invaluable moving forward. Katie is obviously your accrediting body. They are the skeleton. They are the framework for which we base our program. We need Katie to sort of set the stage for us. So they are the skeleton, and we flesh our program around that skeleton. Opportunistic. We want our students and our preceptors to look for opportunities for learning. If that means everything from potential viewing of a surgery to a grafting technique or a unique myofascial technique, etc. We want to seek out those opportunities for learning, and we want to grab them and be aggressive with them. Real world. We look for real world opportunities here. We try to avoid simulation as much as possible. We want our students working on real patients, of real injuries, in real time, in the real world. We want their autonomy. We want their independence to be in a real world setting. So as a preceptor, we hope that you embrace that model also. Enjoyable. The only reason it's this far down on the list is just the way it is spelled out in SCORES, but we want to make sure these sites are fun. I know when I was in school, my clinical rotations were the most fun that I had, and we want our students to have that. We want our students to go to their clinical rotation looking forward to working with the athletes, working with the patients, and being there. We don't want it to be, oh, I got to do my clinical rotation. We want it to be fun, exciting, enjoyable, because this is what they're doing with the profession. So we really want to make sure they're enjoyable as possible. And the last one is setting specific, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here, but we want everything within our clinical rotation to be specific to the setting, the exposure, the patients, etc. And I'll show you what I mean. So that's an overview of our general philosophy. It is a team endeavor, and we talked about stakeholders in the slide before, but the ATEP faculty, we provide the knowledge, the preceptors, you provide the clinical expertise, and then the students, they provide feedback to you, they provide feedback to us, and they provide a mentoring and feedback to each other. So you take these 3 components and you put them together. It's really a team effort. It's everyone working for the same goal, and that is to have a strong program, strong academics, strong clinicals, so we can have strong students going into the workforce and representing the profession of athletic training as best as possible. Our basic academic plan, which is available online on our webpage, which is also in the comment section on YouTube, they start with summer session 1, and then they basically have the majority of their coursework in that first year, from assessment and modalities in the fall to Therex, Pharm, and General Medical in the spring. So you can see how much of their foundational knowledge is done right in that first year. The summer, they don't have, second summer, they don't have any obligations, but many of them go and do internships, etc. They come back in the fall of their second year for management and optimizing athletic performance, which is basically a course designed to give them the bridge between rehab in the athletic training room and return to play. And how do we get them in the weight room? How do we work with the weight room? How do we do speed, quickness, agility, that type of stuff? And then their spring, they really only have 2 courses, a BOC prep, which is also a resume building professional development course, and a research methods course. So this is their basic layout. So as a preceptor, you will know that your first year, first semester student is very green in terms of their academic knowledge, but going to their second year, these students have had most of their foundational knowledge. You can push them to in their knowledge and in their academic basis. Our philosophy of progression is pretty basic. Our first years are basic knowledge and applications. If you remember from the previous modules, you look at Bloom's taxonomy, first years are going to be down at that bottom basic knowledge aspect. But as they move forward, we want that critical thinking and synthesis for our second years. We want the second years to be basically not acting independently because they're still going to be supervised at all times, but to work towards autonomy, supervised autonomy, if you will. Each student will be exposed to multiple settings, population and exposures, and what we basically, as a clinical coordinator, what I base that on is what we need to have covered from our clinical sites and our preceptors, what they need, and also what the student needs. So we have multiple sites, and they say, hey, we could really use 2 students. I want to do my best to make sure they have 2 students. At the same time, I want to make sure the students they get are students that are going to appreciate and love that rotation. So each student is going to have at least one college, one high school, one what we call rehab intensive setting. They'll have one male, female, and general population exposure, and they'll be exposed to rotations that are typically upper extremity, like volleyball and baseball, lower extremity, like soccer or track, equipment intensive, like men's lacrosse and football, and general medical, being going to a physician's office or working with physicians in more of a general medical setting. So they might not be experts in all of these when they're done, but they'll be at least being exposed to all of these different types through their rotations here. And again, they have 4 rotations with a minimum of 300 hours and a maximum of 450 hours for each rotation. So even at the bare minimum, 4 rotations at 300 hours are going to get 1,200 clinical exposure hours in addition to their didactic academic coursework, which is a pretty good amount. If you look at this, this is sort of a spreadsheet for how I do the rotation. So you can see if you have the student here, I have the setting, the patient, the exposure, and then a preseason. All our students do a preseason in the fall. You can't fake or simulate preseason 2-a-days and all that kind of stuff. So students will all have a preseason. And so you can see here, I have to make sure that they each have a high school, college, rehab, upper, lower, male, female, general, and equipment rotation, and I color coded it to make sure that every student has that by the time they leave their 4 rotations. But if you just look right here, you can see the preceptor, the rotation, and how they move through. Obviously going into spring 16, I don't really have it finalized, but I kind of have an idea of where I'm going to put them. I just haven't finalized it yet. And these are very fluid. I probably go for at least a dozen different drafts of these rotations, really, again, taking into account a lot of different factors. And typically when I move one student or have to change one rotation, there's a ripple effect and everyone gets changed. So I put a lot of thought, a lot of effort using preceptor feedback and student feedback and really trying to make a rotation that's going to work best for everybody. Here's just a quick graphical representation of the sites that we use, and hopefully I didn't miss your slide up here. So our clinical rotation objectives, or CROs, which is the term you're going to hear a lot. Those are our clinical proficiencies. We don't do checkoffs or checklists. We do everything in a much more global nature. I'm going to show you what I mean in a minute. Again, Katie provided our skeleton, and with the help of our stakeholders, we developed these clinical rotation objectives that are specific to the setting, the patient, and the exposure that they're going to get. So we have specific objectives for male population. We have specific objectives for lower extremity, etc. Just because a student does not have a rotation objective for your rotation, if something comes up, again, teachable moments, be opportunistic. Don't be afraid to show them that. So this is what a typical global critical rotation objective looks like. This is for our preseason exposure. You can see right here that we have the objective, which is based off of the educational competencies. So you can see that I'm basing this basically off the educator's competencies, the outcome being able to treat heat illness, the outcome being able to perform a PPE, and here's how we, or you as a preceptor, or I as a clinical coordinator, will evaluate them. We're going to talk about the 3 main ways that we evaluate them or assess them in a minute. So this is just for preseason. Now they're going to have one for upper, lower, they'll have one for high school, they'll have one for college, and they're very specific. And again, I tweak these basically every year. You can see this is version 2015, so I've actually modified this version since last year. And these are available to you. These are going to be available to the students on the Google Drive app. So let's take an example of Dudley High School. The setting will be high school. The exposure is either upper or lower extremity and equipment intensive. If we're doing football in the fall, I can make that either upper or lower because they get equally injured there. And obviously being football will be a male population. Same thing with A&T, which would be basically the same thing because North Carolina A&T football is the same thing, except we changed the setting. So now it's college university as opposed to high school. And again, each one's going to have specific objectives for them. The 3 ways that we evaluate or you will assess these clinical rotation objectives. If you go back 2 slides, global evals are the most common one. That's one you're going to deal with the most in discussion. These are going to be the most 2 most common. They will submit things directly to me, which I will grade and take care of, and then there'll be a reflection, which again I will look at. So let's talk about the first 2. The first one being global evaluation. It's based on a 3-point scale, and it's global in nature. So whenever we're saying I want you to evaluate a ACL injury, the evaluation is you're going to evaluate a knee injury, and everything that goes into evaluating a knee injury, being able to decide what special tests to use, how to check a range of motion, etc. So we want the student not to look at the body as just different injuries, but to look at the body as how do I do a full evaluation. So that's what we're looking for. 2 is considered minimally competent, so we want them to score at least a 2, and if they're not proficient, don't give them a 2. I have given you criteria on how to judge that, but feel free to use your own criteria. And please provide feedback to them. So if you look at a typical global evaluation, I have different ones for the different CROs. This one happens to be the global taping and wrapping. I have criteria. Again, feel free to use your own criteria on the left here. We want as many of these to be in real time as possible. We understand that some might be simulated. Here's your 1 to 3 scale. Anything over a 2, you can consider them minimally competent for an entry-level athletic trainer. So an entry-level athletic trainer, if they perform that skill at that level. And again, I'm not saying what taping here, so it could be any sort of athletic taping. It could be a basket weave, a spike, etc. This global evaluation works for all of them. Starting this year, I'm also actually having a online version. I'm trying to move this to online, but I'm going to be pilot testing it this year. Here's the link right above here. It's a Qualtrics. So if you click on that, it actually brings you to the global evaluations, which are available online. So if you can click on that, you can go and play around with it. And hopefully it connects me. So if you come here and you just click on it, you can see you can type in your student. So I'm just going to type in myself, see I'm a student. Click next. And then I give you a drop down of all the preceptors here. So we can just say Jay McCoy because he's the first one. And then I give you a list of all the different types of CRO categories. So let's say we're going to do taping and wrapping because that's one we just saw. So we do a taping and wrapping. And let's say that the student's rotation was upper. So you can click on upper. Body part was a wrist and hand. And you did mechanical support or something like that for the elbow. No worries. And then again, you can rate them anywhere on that scale. Provide comments. It was awesome. Put your initials there. Submit. And boom, just like that, you're done. You have a global evaluation, which is automatically sent to me. So things like that can be used, and hopefully we can move forward and start using that more and more in the future. So here's an example on how you want to do it. So you can go back and look at the global eval I put. But let's say a student does they do a very in-depth history. They have 3 differentials. They palpated. They only did 1 special test. They didn't do range of motion muscle testing. How would you score it? Would you score that too or not? And again, you're going to have full ability to score it any way you wish to score it. I am not going to come back and tell you how to score it. Use your own criteria, etc. Some people want a very in-depth history. Some people want to make sure they always do range of motion, and when they do it, use a goniometer. I want you to use your own preferences and use your own ability here. So you feel free to go back a couple slides and how would you score or evaluate them on a simple ankle injury. So for review, your student will perform rotation objective. You should observe them, obviously, provide them feedback. Remember back from the feedback module, you want to give feedback on an observable task, so you have to observe the student. Use a global evaluation. Provide them feedback, hopefully written and verbal, and then they will turn in their paperwork with their next biweekly meeting, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, the second way that you can assess your student was a discussion, and there are various things which you will discuss, but these can be formal or informal. You're sitting at practice, teams and film session, etc., you can go and just simply do a discussion to talk about various things like menstrual disorder, eating disorders, etc. And you don't actually have to provide anything from this. The discussion is the student has to simply mark on their biweekly that they had a discussion on a topic, and I take it from there. So if you look at global evaluation discussions, those are the two main ways that you're going to evaluate your student in a clinical setting on their basic clinical rotation objectives. So if you have a Okay, so now that you know how to assess the student using either a global evaluation or using a discussion, now we're going to talk about the biweekly report, and this is how everything kind of gets reported back to me as a clinical coordinator. You are going to meet every other week with your student. Now, these reports are due back to me on Wednesdays, so most people will probably meet on like a Monday or Tuesday, talk about their prior 2 weeks, and then the student is responsible for handing me in the biweekly report. The top part of the form, which I'm going to show you in a second, the student fills out, hands it to you prior to your meeting, or gets it to you prior to your meeting, and basically it's a reflection of their 2 weeks and how they felt they did. At the bottom, you reflect on the 2 weeks and how everything went, and then you plan ahead for the next 2 weeks. So this happens every other week. It's bi-weekly. There are usually 7 or 8 of them, depending on how the academic calendar works out, some rotation. So really, nothing should be going on in a rotation that I'm not really aware of. I don't like it, or when all of a sudden I hear at the end of the year, hey, we had this issue the whole time, when nothing was being reported on the biweekly. So this is a chance for both you as the preceptor and as a student to have an open and frank conversation about how the clinical rotation is going. So this is how the biweekly looks, and you can see the top part right here. The student's going to fill in this top part with their 2 weeks in terms of what they did in clinical or practice or games and how many hours they had. And then any discussion that they did, they will list here in dates, so you can check to make sure that, yeah, we did that discussion or we didn't. Any of their submissions will be marked right here. And again, the submissions are something that I will look for. And then the global evaluations, because we're doing them electronically, hopefully, will automatically be generated, so I don't have to worry about them listing them on the biweekly. But here comes the reflection part. And what we're doing is we're doing a modified SWOT analysis. You know SWOT. This is the student is going to self-reflect on their strengths, self-reflect on their weaknesses, and then their ability to be engaged during the rotation. What I mean by that is how were they those last 2 weeks? Now, life happens and we get that, but I want the student to be able to self-reflect on that and say, you know, I had a lot of exams, so I wasn't really thinking about my clinicals, or I had a family issue, or etc. Or I was really engaged, I was there early, I stayed a little bit late, you know, I really was on top of my clinical rotations. And then finally, their goals for the next 2 weeks. What do they think they want to do next 2 weeks? And you're going to do the same thing. The strengths of the student, the weaknesses of the student, and how you judge how much they were engaged during rotation. And if this is different, that needs to be a discussion between the two of you. Because if the student is thinking that they were very much engaged and you as a preceptor think they weren't, that's a breakdown. And we need to make sure that we work on how we can improve that and why the perceptions are different. And again, you as a preceptor, your goals for the next 2 weeks. You both will discuss it, assign data, and again, this comes back to me as coordinator. I go through them all. I make comments on them. I give comments, and if I have to intervene, I will. But that is a biweekly report. So when it comes to paperwork, your real main paperwork are going to be your global evaluations and your biweekly reports. I highly recommend that you go and schedule a biweekly that you're going to meet, say, every Tuesday, the week that the biweekly is due at 12 o'clock, and you'll talk about the biweekly so they can be submitted to me on time on Wednesday. The student is responsible for this, so please understand that. Other types of evaluations, we do a mid and end of rotation evaluation for both the preceptor, the student, and the clinical site. So the student will assess you as a preceptor, and they will assess their clinical site, and you as a preceptor will flip back and assess the student both at the midterm and the end of rotation. This should be a little bit more in depth than the biweekly reports. There are a whole list of different questions, making sure that the students are meeting the competencies that are set forth by Katie and meeting our standards. We don't want to wait to address a problem. I prefer to be a little bit hands-off. I really like it when the student and the preceptor can work through any sort of situations on their own. I think that's a very good professional development for the student, because you're not going to get along with everybody, and you might hit a little bit of a bump. So for having the student to be able to engage and work through issues, I think is a huge professional development. However, as the clinical coordinator, I am always there, and we can do various things to make sure that the setting between the student and preceptor is working as smoothly as possible. There are incident reports that you can file on the students, and we can dismiss the student, although those are last case scenarios. We prefer not to do that, but every now and then things don't work out the way we want them to. The student responsibilities, they are basically responsible for everything. Paperwork, supplying you with the needed materials, etc. You're really a facilitator and a resource. But they are responsible for their learning. So if they prefer to sit like a lump on the log, which we don't want, obviously, and not engage in their rotation, you can mention that on the biweekly report. And you can tell them, look, this education is up to you. You're going to get into it you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Students should provide copies with the objectives early. I will be sharing you a copy off the Google Drive, and always make sure you communicate your expectations. And if you didn't communicate something and something comes up, use it as a teachable moment. Say, you know what, I didn't address it at the beginning of the rotation. I should have, but moving forward, this is the new policy, or this is my new expectation. All right? So going through how we kind of run things, it's going to be confusing the first couple of times you do it. I get that, so I'm obviously here to answer any questions. The students, especially if you're a new preceptor, for a new student, you guys might be frowning a little bit, but please utilize me as much as possible. If you're a new preceptor with a second-year student, they've done all this, so they're going to be a fantastic resource in terms of how you can go about and how you navigate our paperwork, etc. Basically, if you have any questions, email is going to be the best way to get in touch with me. But there is my office number. I'm going to actually give you my cell number also, area code 516-313-2010, area code 516-313-2010. Feel free to text me or call me if you have any issues. Just as an FYI, I don't have any data plan on my cell phone, so if you send me any sort of group message or picture or anything like that, I won't get it because I can't access that without a data plan. But feel free to email me. I check my email multiple times at night when I'm home, and obviously all day long. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. And finally, I just really want to thank you. You guys are vital to our success as an entry-level master's and as a program in general. And you are members and pillars of the community, and the more that we can outreach and network and get into the community, hopefully we can represent both UNCG, your establishment, your business, etc. as well as much as we can. The link again is in the comment section here on YouTube. You must click that and complete that to be verified as a preceptor. You will be compensated financially for this. Dr. Scott Ross will be emailing you about all those type of things. But again, we do thank you for helping us out. If you have any questions, please feel free. But congratulations. After you complete the quiz, you are UNCG's newest preceptor. I look forward to working with you for many years, and best of luck to you.